Welcome everybody. I'm Janet Vogel. I'm the director of the Hiram College Library, and we're really excited to be presenting a series of digital and information literacy workshops throughout the spring semester and into the summer. So definitely check out what we've got on tap today as well as in the future. For those of you who are on Zoom, you are in webinar mode, so you are muted, and there are no video or sound, but you can chat in the chat, and my colleague Lawrence will be monitoring that chat. So at certain times when I'll ask everybody to provide some suggestions, we'll throw it out to the chat as well as the folks in the room. So I was wondering, as we get started, if you all might be willing to scan the QR code using your cell phone and go on into the Jamboard and let us know, how you like to learn about new books. So what's the way that you do that now? And for the folks on Zoom, I will paste the link in a second once the people here in this room have a chance to scan. So you should be able to, over on the left-hand side, find a sticky note and just type how you find books. Is it too small? Oh. Did it work for the rest of you? Okay, good. All right, I'm just gonna tap over here into, so you can see here on my screen what folks are seeing, and I should be able to copy this link here into the Zoom chat. It doesn't look like, oh, I can't chat to everybody because I'm not the host. All right, well, hopefully folks are seeing it. I see people are commenting and telling us how they find things. So Barnes & Noble emails, Library Journal, Libby, Goodreads, Bookstagram, library displays, friend recommendations. Absolutely. So there's lots of different ways, podcasts and YouTube videos, lots of different ways that folks try to find book recommendations. And so one of the things that I was hoping by providing this, you all can access this Jamboard later too, so you can always get suggestions from your friends that way. But let's go ahead on into the presentation. Let me hide my camera again. So before there was artificial intelligence, there were librarians, right? And one of the tools that I always use as a public librarian who spent a lot of time recommending books to people was a program called Novelist. And it is developed by EBSCO, and many public libraries have it. I believe most Ohio public libraries have it. Certainly Portage County has it, and I know Cuyahoga County has it. For my friends who may be online from Maryland, I know Frederick County does have it as well. So the link I have here is for access to it from Portage County. You do need your handy dandy library card to access it. And what it does is it uses a book's attributes to group the books with similar content. So attributes like genre, attributes like what age group the publisher might be tagging it as, what subjects are established by the Library of Congress, and then a human develops links or develops lists of books to make suggestions. So some of the pros for it are, of course, that it is available at no cost to you. It's paid for by your public library. It has very secure data because it is provided by a public library. There are no ads, and you can connect directly to your public library. So if I were to have clicked on a link for one of these books, it will give me the option to see what does it look like in the public library. Does your public library own it? Some of the cons are that it is a little bit difficult to use. It's a lot of content in there. There's a lot to navigate. And I sometimes used to find when I was a public librarian that people would struggle a little bit with using all the features. But you can search for a book directly in there, and it will give you recommendations. Kind of like when you are on Amazon and it says like, you might also like, that Amazon data is based, of course, on what other people have purchased. So slightly different. And of course, you do have to have a library card to use it. So why does artificial intelligence work for book suggestions? One of the reasons is the same reason that Novelist works. Librarians and publishers spend a lot of time categorizing and classifying books. So they have all of these tags, all of this data that provides the background information for that content. And a lot of that information is publicly available. Our catalogs are publicly available. They can be accessed by the variety of different AI tools. Also, people love to share information about their books. And so you'll see that some of these databases are built off of people sharing information with other people about books that they like, about books that they've enjoyed, and books that they've read. And there is a lot more science behind that. This is not a workshop that is designed to tell you all of the ins and outs of how artificial intelligence works. We will have other sessions more about AI. So if you wanted to learn more, you can. But for today, as I'm saying here, right, there are more sessions you can attend. I had a friend once who worked in IT who always said, if it's free, you're the product, right? And so that's why when I was talking about Novelist, I made sure to mention that somebody does pay for it. The library pays for it. But if it's free, if it's Facebook, if it's ChatGPT, they are using all of that data to learn more about you, to either improve their software or to sell you something, right? Amazon is actually a librarian's best friend.
Things in the room.
Oh no, well you can come back.
I'm gonna go let them get their book back.
So you can, you know, if Amazon is selling you a book, right, it's holding on to that data and it wants to sell you more books, right, or more things in general. That's why every time you click on an email that you get from some sort of company, then later on it will send you an email saying, hey, are you still thinking about that, right? Because it's trying to make money off of you one way or another. So I'm going to show you for each of the tools that I'm talking about some of the ways that you can learn more about what's happening with your data on these tools. But just generally speaking, know that the more information that you provide to any website, whether it's Facebook or Instagram or TikTok or whatever, that company is doing something with that data. It might be keeping it for itself, but it's doing something with its data for its benefit, not for your benefit necessarily, because it is a for-profit company. They want to make money. And one could argue that something like Novelist, because it is owned by a for-profit company, it's owned by EBSCO, that is also something that is trying to do things with your data. But one of the differences is that librarians are really obsessed with privacy. It's one of our core tenets. And so they do try to hold our database vendors accountable for what they do with our user data. So the first one that I encountered was something called Redo.ai or Redo. I'm not sure how you say it, but it's super fun. You just tell it a book title that you like, and then you tell it another book title and another book title. Oh.
Yeah, I was like.
It is good on my screen. Is it on your screen as well?
Yeah, it's like that.
Okay. What did it just happen when I changed?
Yeah, go back.
Okay. Yeah, it looks like it's getting stuck on the transition. How about now? It just doesn't like that one slide. There we go.
Oh.
Better on your side? Okay, good. So you can input a title. So in this case, I had selected Baltimore Blues, which is a mystery that I just read for my book club. And then I suggested that I enjoy Still Life by Louise Penny, which I also enjoy. And then I threw it a little bit of a curveball and I gave it something outside of that genre and I entered The Personal Librarian. And that's when things got a little wonky. It did a great job when I was saying, you know, all we want is mysteries, and they're all kind of already a little bit of a similar genre in terms of even the style of the mystery. And then I threw that in, and it was a whole bunch of books I had never heard of, and most of them were not mysteries. But that's okay, right? And one of the reasons that it does that is because it takes information in sequence. So as you add more, the more recent one, it weights a little bit heavier. So it's a great broad database, I got some interesting suggestions out of it. You can easily remove a book from the list by clicking on the little trash can icon so that it will pull up additional books. You can create an account and start saving book lists if you want. Of course, keep in mind my previous caveat about the more information you give it, the more information it has. It does have a lot of ads. Like I was using it this morning and I had it pop up and I walked away for a second and an ad had popped up on the screen. So it has quite a few ads and there's no advanced search. So for example, when I was originally looking for this, I was going to use the book First Ladies instead of The Personal Librarian. They're both by the same author. And you start typing in First Ladies, and there are obviously a lot of books with that title. I tried adding the author's name, and I wasn't able to do that. So I would have had to scroll and scroll and scroll to try to find that book. So I just actually entered in a different book that I knew was similar. And of course, it links to Amazon instead of your local library. So it's not checking your local library, but it is giving you access to all of that content on Amazon. And it does not have an overview. It doesn't give you a summary from that page. You have to actually click to get more information. What should I read next is a little bit different. Again, tons of ads, which you can even just see from the screenshot. I tried to capture that. So you can search for a book or browse by subject, so pretty similar to one of the basic features of Novelist. And when you click on that title, then it gives you other books that are like that title. So you can't say, I like all of these different types of books, show me what I might want. It's just based on, I liked this book, so I'm going to get more information about this book. It is also their background information. They say that it was originally based on a community of readers that they had built, so giving information based on what other readers have submitted. So it's not quite as sophisticated with the AI, which makes sense based on the way that it works. So some of the pros for this, very easy to navigate. You can create that account if you would like and make a wish list. They promise that they will not sell your information. They promise they use it only for them, and they do not track your cookies. But the cons are that there are lots of ads, and when I dove into the privacy policy, they said that while they don't sell your information, those advertisers are collecting information about you, which is pretty standard. This is a standard thing for any website that is making money off of ads like Google AdSense and things like that. And of course, you can't fine-tune with multiple titles. So that's one of the things I want to point out when you're thinking about what is this website doing with my information. So you can go to the About page. You can go to the privacy policy. Some of them are very jargony. Some of those privacy policies are very much lawyerese. Many of them have started now to give you some additional information in sort of plain speak, so you can understand a little bit better about what you're talking about or what they're talking about to make it a little bit easier to understand. So next 3 books is one that I absolutely loved when I was preparing this presentation back in October for our grant. And I tried to access it from multiple browsers multiple times today, and it got stuck. But I left it in here because it is different than the others, and I thought it was a really cool concept. So maybe it will work another day. This is always one of the challenges with anything related to AI and things built on software that is still sort of in its exploratory stages. It does use ChatGPT 3, and I don't know if that's a reason why, because now the public version of ChatGPT is 3.5, and the paid version is ChatGPT 4. So I don't know if that plays a role. The website has no information, no privacy policy. It just appears to be some guy's passion project, some guy's hobby that he's interested in sharing. So we'll see. But what is cool about it is you can say, I'm in the mood for a novel, a self-help book, a business book. And then you can talk about how long it is, and it gives you options for what type of thing. Is it lighthearted? Is it plot driven? Is it character driven? Something like that. And then you can share additional information, and then it'll give you 3 books because it thinks that 3 books according to the person who designed it, are about the number that anybody needs. More than that is too much choice. Less than that, not enough choice. So I just thought that this one was an interesting topic. And so if you can get it to work, it's fun to play with. But like I said, I was not able to get it to work. It just kind of sat there at the load side of things. Sona is another interesting one. Like What Should I Read Next? It is based on a community of readers already. So it is based on some of that user data. And this one was also, the way that it returned the information, very different than some of the others. So you can use plain language to describe what you're looking for. So I said a murder mystery featuring a librarian and a cat. And the first time that I did that, it returned, the third result was Dewey the library cat, the young reader's version, in fact. So I added in 4 adults, and that not only seemed to have tweaked it a little bit more to make sure that we actually were getting like murder mysteries and not just books related to libraries and cats, but then it seemed to fine tune that as well. So what I enjoyed about using this one was that I could really continue to add to it and add to the questions that I had to try to fine tune what I was looking for. So some of the pros, right? It's easy to use. It does have ads, but they are much less intrusive. They claim that they claim that they make money off of Amazon affiliate sales, but there is definitely an ad in the bottom. There's that piece of it as well. So they are getting some ad services as well. And it provides a summary of the books on the homepage, a nice summary. I really appreciate the way that it is set up. It's a good amount of information to help you make a decision. Like all the others, when you click on that, it does, of course, bring you to an Amazon page. So you do have to specify what age range you're looking for. And it did have some trouble with some titles, more so than in the other databases. And I think it's because of the way that it gets its data. It's not necessarily using as much publisher and library data as some of the other ones. So I searched for Still Life by Louise Penny. I said, find me a book that's like that. And it did come up with a couple of mysteries, one of them by Louise Penny. And then it was 3 or 4 books that were about painting still lifes. So not exactly the same as a murder mystery by Louise Penny. So you might have to play with it, tweak it a little bit. Talpa.ai is the one that actually got me started thinking about doing this presentation. I am very excited about its possibilities. The challenge with it is that, so it was developed by Library Thing, which is a competitor to Goodreads. And so it uses ChatGPT and Claude AI, and it also comes with a database provided by Library Thing. So those of you that have used Library Thing are probably aware that it's kind of like a competitor to Goodreads. People can store their information, but it's also often used by small libraries as a cataloging software option. And so it has all of that data behind it. And then they also have partnered with ProQuest to get Syndetics Unbound in there. That's actually what powers a lot of the pictures of books that are in many catalogs is Syndetics. And then the Bacher book database as well for publishers. So super cool. You can actually find a book based on its cover design or color. And so in the example here, I have said blue book with a cat. And I was curious what would come up. And, Cat in the Hat is bluish. It's a little more teal in my definition, but I don't think you could get more spot on than that in terms of what it's doing. And then, it came up with a couple other options as well. And it did give you the option, like, did it help? So it's trying to train because this is still in development. So some of the cons are, of course, that it is still in development, and right now it's free to a small selection of libraries. There is a demo version online that's connected to one of the libraries that's using it. So at some point, it will probably not be universally available. They're probably going to try to get libraries to pay to add this service. And they also admit that it works best for older titles and that it can miss newly published titles. They did not give more information about why that is, but I would imagine some of it has to do with how much data they have in Library Thing about older titles versus newer titles. And the results are determined based on what your library owns. So if you are a member of a public library that participates in the program, you would be able to immediately know that the books that are being returned are books that your library owns. You can click through and request them. So I thought that was a nice little feature for our libraries. I did find it was a little bit slow when I was searching for it, particularly the first time I did a search. So I did this search, Blue Book with a cat, and then I thought maybe I wanted to do something else as my example. And so I tried a couple more, and then I went back to Blue Book with a cat, and it came up a lot more quickly. So I think some of it is just based on what it's remembering from what you've searched, because it was all part of the same session. But so just a heads up on that. If it's a little bit slow, give it some time. But yeah, and you can see here in the example, it says check availability. So that's checking the availability of the library that's sampled here. And then, of course, there's good old ChatGPT. So I was thinking, can ChatGPT do this as well? I would imagine it can, right? And so just like you ask ChatGPT to do all sorts of different things, right? You can ask it to return information about, what color should I paint my house, right? Same sort of question, right? So you prompt it for suggestions. So in this case, we asked it to recommend some science fiction books that are humorous and have a strong female main character. And we got back a list of 4 books. So I would have liked more, but if we think about what the other sites were suggesting, maybe 4 is okay. But you might need to tweak it, right? So the 4th book was one that my husband had read, and so we knew that it did not have a female main character. So we asked it, does the 4th book have a female main character? And it is actually saying, oh, I'm so sorry, and explaining why it selected it and saying you might want these other 3 books if you like it. Now, of course, for those of you that are unfamiliar with ChatGPT and how it gets its data, it does not have current data. In this case, ChatGPT 3.5 is using data up through January 2022. So that's new, actually, that it's recently added that information. And it is working on using data that is publicly available. So it's kind of scraping the public web. There are some lawsuits out there right now. The New York Times is suing them for using content that they say belongs to them. So keep in mind that the landscape here is going to change, and we'll see where it goes. I think the cat is out of the bag, so there will certainly be, they're not going to stop doing this, but just the way that it works may change a little bit. And of course, you have to have an account. So again, that is, you're giving it some information to get something for free. But it does learn based on what you've said. Of course, it's sort of in a little bit of a bubble, right? So you ask it for information and you can train it and you can tell it different things, but that's not necessarily affecting what someone else searches. So David and I could do the same search, tell it similar things, and might get different results. I did also see on one of the other sites that was like trying to promote itself over ChatGPT, talking about how its data was real, right? So sometimes ChatGPT will make up sources, for sure. We know that. We've seen that as librarians, that you can ask it to provide you with a 5-paragraph essay with APA citations, and those citations may not be real. I have not seen that in my very limited attempts to find books with ChatGPT, but it is possible that it might suggest a book to you that does not exist. So caveat there. I also asked it for a more generic suggestion, recommend some books that are like The Dutch House. So again, a book that is pretty famous and pretty well known. And it provided 3 or maybe 4, I can't remember, but 3 that I thought actually were pretty close in terms of at least popularity, and that they were realistic fiction, things like that. And of course, we can't do a crash course in AI and book suggestions without talking about AI versus your librarian or even a friend, right? So of course, the pros of working with your friend or a librarian, right? Infinite possibilities. We all know lots of different people. Everybody has read lots of different things over the course of their lifetime, and they might be able to make some great suggestions for you. I also have always appreciated the value of a personal recommendation, right? Knowing that what somebody has said. So for example, a friend of mine gave me a book for Christmas. I read it, I enjoyed it, and then I could pass it along to another friend, and I could say, hey, just FYI, this part is a little bit scary, right? Or this part is a little bit this. Things that you wouldn't necessarily see in a book review, or things that you might not necessarily get just from asking one of these AI recommenders. Of course, the cons are they might ask you if you have read that book yet. We all have that friend who likes to suggest books and then bugs you about whether or not you read it and whether or not you liked it. And you could have an awkward situation where you hated the book and then you have to talk to your friend about it. But I think all in all, there are still wonderful reasons to talk to your friends, talk to your librarians about that. I have provided some non-AI resources beyond, of course, friends, family, and librarians, which are at the bottom there. So novelists, which I mentioned, many of us use Goodreads, many of us use Library Thing. There's always Book Talk, there's Bookstagram, which I saw somebody mention. There's something called Tertulia, which I haven't used in a while, but my husband used to use it. To get book suggestions. It'll send you like 20 books. I don't know. I should not talk about it if I don't remember. But it'll send you book suggestions based on characteristics, so kind of similar to Novelist. Novelist will also send you some book suggestions as well if you're interested in that. And there is now, that I just realized I forgot to put on here, there's a competitor to Goodreads that a lot of folks are interested in that is a Black-owned business. And its name is escaping me, but I will make sure that I put it in the information when I share it. So this is being recorded, and so it will go on the library's website, and it is also part of the Hiram College Professional Development, and so it will go into the Professional Development SharePoint as well. And for those of you who are local, I would be remiss about promoting, if I didn't promote the opportunity to add more books to your collection. So perhaps as you do your searching and you create a list, come visit the library's book sale. Many local libraries, for those of you online, also have book sales, so check those out. And we do have flyers up at the front for those who are in person. And of course, a friendly reminder, check out your book from the library the next time you come. And I wanted to ask both in the chat or here in person if anybody was interested in seeing us do a live demo with the last 5 or so minutes of the workshop of any of the sites that we promoted, or if you wanted to put in a plug for a book that you've enjoyed that you think others might enjoy, go ahead and put that in the chat. Storygraph, thank you, Laura. That is the one that I was thinking of, Storygraph. It is, I believe, a Black-owned business. So thank you, Laura, for putting that in there. While we wait for any comments, please also do fill out our survey. So this is, as I said, a program that was funded by the State Library of Ohio and the Institute of Museum and Library Services. So we're excited about that. I don't see additional questions yet, but feel free to type those questions in the chat. Anybody reading something that they enjoy or listening to something? I am not a librarian who only talks about books that you read. Listening is reading.
There's a question from Laura.
Okay. Yes, Novelist is accessed only through your public library. So that is one key caveat. Maybe one of the cons is that you only have access to it through the public library. And I believe when I was talking to David, I don't know that the library, Laura, where you live is available. It is available there. But anybody who lives here in Ohio, you can get a public library card at any library in Ohio. So because you live here, you can get a card here. And so you can get access to it. Yeah, so, and sometimes, Laura, too, the public library websites are a little challenging. Like I knew Portage County subscribed to it, but I couldn't find it on the website. And I ended up just Googling Portage County Novelist, and I did find it linked that way. It used to be a statewide resource for Ohio, but it does not appear to be anymore. So some of the libraries held on to it. Like I said, Cuyahoga County does have it as well, and they have an online card application. And Brian says, I'm going to look at Topla.ai. I've used LibraryThing for a long time. Yeah, that was definitely a nice option to see a company that many of us have used for a very long time, having access to it. Yes.
Do you know if any of these would help you find a book? If someone comes in and describes it, I read this book 20 years ago and it was based in wherever and it was about a girl who did this and that. If you type those details into these, will that help you find titles?
Yeah, so the question is whether or not any of these sources will help you find a title if somebody comes to you and says, I read a book, when I was a kid and it had this, and, giving you some characteristics of the book. So as a librarian, I used to use Novelist for that all the time. So it's just like doing any other database search. You come up with the keywords. What I'm interested in seeing is how that Talpa.ai would handle a question like that, because it adds in that characteristic of the book cover. Novelist, I know they had talked about adding the book cover color and a few of those things, but I don't remember if they actually did or not, and because that wasn't the focus of this presentation, I didn't look that up. But some of my librarian friends who I know are online might know that answer as well, if you've been using Novelist a lot. So I actually would recommend a non-AI one for that. But I actually think that some of those, so scrolling back if it doesn't break the system. So like I said, Talpa.ai I think would be a good one for that. But also, I'd be interested to know if Sona would. I'm not sure if its database is deep enough. So that's the other piece of it. I was trying to get some information about how much data they had, right? How far back does this go? And some of them were pretty forthright. So Talpa.ai, very forthright. They have all this data, so much data. Sona appeared to be based, like I said, on that community of users. So it was a little bit unclear about whether they had added in content themselves, like pulling in a database, or if it was really just based on what their users had added. But because of the plain language, it might do that for you. The other one that probably has the best amount of data is that readout.ai, but it won't do what you're asking it to do because it's based on book titles. So I would start with Novelist, maybe try Talpa, and go from there.
Actually be pretty good for that because it scours stuff that's already been written. If people have written about the book and describing characteristics about it, then it might be able to retrieve that.
Sometimes you just Google. I found a lot of content about hedgehogs in Australia, and Google that's how I found what I needed. So I mean, honestly, it's just fucking persistent, I guess.
Yeah. So Lawrence suggested maybe trying ChatGPT, just making sure that it's heard on the microphone, and then David suggested just Google. I know that it does work for some of your more generic searches. From my experience being a librarian in a reader's advisory heavy library, it couldn't always get those like really old titles or some of those really specific things that somebody wants, but sometimes you can get lucky. Yesterday I was in book club and somebody was talking about this book that was written by somebody named William something something, set in Minnesota, and I literally Googled William Minnesota book and I got the author, whose name I have now promptly forgotten. But yeah, Google can also do a lot of that for you as well. Any other questions from the group or any questions here? So this was designed to be a nice quick 30 minutes. And so I hope that it was useful. As I said, it will be posted on library.hiram.edu. I'm just going to the last page there. It will be posted on library.hiram.edu on our events page. So library.hiram.edu/home/events. I will also try to post it into the event page for this event on Facebook for the folks that learned about it that way. I would anticipate, because of some things that are going on here in the library, that I will probably post it in about a week and a half, but it will get posted. And I hope that everybody learned something and is inspired to try something new. Thanks, everybody.